In part 1 of this two-part series, we explored Schopenhauer's metaphysical system, developed in his famous work The World as Will and Representation, revealing how it laid the foundation for his renowned pessimistic outlook on existence as characterized by suffering and conflict. In part 2, we will further uncover Schopenhauer's perspective on the role of aesthetic appreciation as a vehicle to temporarily transcend suffering and examine how certain religions can provide a more lasting comprehension of these essential truths. Ultimately, we will see how Schopenhauer's views on morality emerge organically from his metaphysical system, placing compassion as the natural outcome that has the potential to liberate us from suffering and awaken us to the interconnectedness of all life. As we saw in part 1, Schopenhauer believed that aesthetic and artistic appreciation as well as philosophical contemplation could temporarily alleviate the inherent suffering of existence. He asserted that these moments provide us with glimpses of the unified whole of reality, which is usually hidden from our perceptions behind the illusory veil of representation. Aesthetic pleasure in the beautiful consists to a large extent in the fact that, when we enter the state of pure contemplation, we are raised for the moment above all willing, above all desires and cares. We are, so to speak, rid of ourselves. During these experiences, we are absorbed into the underlying unity at the core of existence and liberated from the striving of the will. Consequently, our sense of individuality dissolves as we come to observe the true essence or form of a representational concept. For example, a particularly creative piece of art, poetry, or music embodies the essence of an emotion, such as sadness or joy. Through the process of listening to or observing these artistic expressions, we are able to experience the essence of that emotion, detached from the individual circumstances. Music does not express this or that particular and definite pleasure, this or that affliction, pain, merriment, or peace of mind. But joy, pain, merriment, peace of mind themselves, their essential nature without any accessories, and so also without the motives for them. Nevertheless, we understand them perfectly in this extracted quintessence. Hence it arises that our imagination is so easily stirred by music and tries to shape that invisible yet vividly aroused spirit world that speaks to us directly. Schopenhauer believed that these unindividuated forms of emotions, concepts, and objects, which exist outside of the individuated will, constitute the true essence of reality, which lies behind the illusory veil of representation. He asserted that this abstract, separated way of perceiving the essence of reality temporarily liberates us from the relentless striving of the will, but was nevertheless an incomplete representation of the fundamental truths that these art forms attempt to illustrate. He contended that religion and philosophy offer more complete versions of the essential truths about reality, as they are a direct manifestation of the will to live, embodied through the intellect of humanity. Although aesthetic beauty and artistic creations convey universal forms of emotions, they cannot communicate conceptually, as is the case with religion and philosophy. For Schopenhauer, philosophy and religion were in any case not a direct experience of these essential truths, but an interpreted version developed for the comprehension of the masses and conveyed through allegory and symbolism. Religion is truth wearing the garment of falsehood. Schopenhauer had particular admiration for the religions of Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism, as he found that several of their core tenets aligned closely to his own philosophy. In particular, one of the foundational beliefs within Hinduism and Buddhism is that the physical world is characterized by suffering, which directly reflected his own pessimistic worldview. Furthermore, the assertion within these religions that suffering can be eliminated by reducing one's desires through asceticism mirrored his own views on ascetic practices as a way to transcend the relentless striving of the will. Schopenhauer also found common ground with their shared emphasis on compassion as the foundation of morality. Unlike the rational construction of ethical systems favored by many philosophers of his era, Schopenhauer recognized that true compassion can only arise organically from an awareness of the unified nature of reality. He believed that dogmatic ethical systems which stemmed from the threat of punishment or retribution were grounded in a self-serving mode of being, driven by fear or reward. Deference to such a God admittedly can produce virtuous actions. However, because fear of punishment or hope for rewards are their motive, these actions will not be purely moral. On the contrary, the inner essence of such virtue will amount to prudent and carefully calculating egoism. For Schopenhauer, compassion could be the only basis of morality. He asserted that all individuals have differing levels of egoism, malice, and compassion within their characters, with egoism being the prevailing norm and compassion a rarer trait. He implies that an individual's differing levels of compassion and egoism are reflections of their proximity to the fundamental truth that all of existence is the manifestation of a single, unified whole. Man's three fundamental ethical incentives, egoism, malice, and compassion, are present in everyone in different and incredibly unequal proportions. In accordance with them, motives will operate on man and actions will ensue. It necessarily follows that the fundamental mode of human existence is egoism, as a natural consequence of the individuating power of the will. Egoism results in actions and behaviors motivated by self-interest, given the perception of the world as a place of individual people striving for self-preservation. Conversely, compassion, a rarer quality according to Schopenhauer, stems from a perception of one's unity with the world and all living organisms. From this mode of awareness, acts of malice or egoism emanate from a misunderstood perception of reality and perpetuate the suffering in the world. Any acts of compassion from this mode of awareness are therefore not motivated on egoism or self-gain, but through the deep awareness that another organism's suffering is equivalent to that of our own. True compassion extends beyond mere pity or sympathy. It involves a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all living beings and a genuine concern for their well-being. The perception of individualism perpetuates egoism and keeps us firmly placed in the cycle of suffering. When we perceive the world through the lens of individuated objects and people, we are instilled with self-interest and competition. When we see the truth of reality, namely that all objects and organisms are individual expressions of the unified fundamental will, we are compelled to regard others with empathy and compassion, recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness. Compassion, therefore, serves not only the function of exponentially reducing suffering in the world, but also facilitates the transcending of the illusory perception of ego, leading to a profound realization of the unity of consciousness. When resentment festers within the confines of the ego and is fueled by malice, it perpetuates the cycle of suffering in the world. Every instance of harming another or acting solely in self-interest diminishes the unity inherent in our interconnected existence. Genuine compassion born from this understanding offers a route beyond the limitations of the ego's ignorance and the pervasive suffering of the world. Jesus exemplified this realization when, at the moment of his impending death on the cross following betrayal and torture, he spoke to God, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Schopenhauer's work offers us a lens through which we can view the darker corners of the human condition, but contains the elements of hope necessary for our redemption. Through self-reflection and an appreciation of the beauty in the world, we can view glimpses of the essence of reality. By understanding the insatiable, blind striving of the will, manifested as the ignorant and self-serving ego, we can gain insight into the motives that lie behind our behaviors. Perhaps most profoundly, Schopenhauer understood that within compassion lies our capability to transcend the confines of the individualistic will or ego, and to emerge out of the depths of suffering into the harmony and peace within the unity of existence.